Hi, I am Cynthia Pastor. I am a prophet of God, and I absolutely love to spend my time just reassuring myself as well as others as a collective, um, just to, um, just to, and by reading the Bible and letting you know and letting me know where we are and where it has taken us since then. This may sound a little bit complicated, but I'll go ahead and read chapter 5 of Ezra, and I'm going to let you know. Uh, but there were prophets in Jerusalem and Judah at the time, Haggai and Zechariah, the son of Iddo, who brought messages from the God of Israel to Zerubbabel. Irony! Son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, son of Jozadak, encouraging them to begin building again. So they did, and the prophets helped them. But Tattenai, the governor of the lands west of the Euphrates, and Shethar Bozenai, and their companions soon arrived in Jerusalem and demanded, "Who gave you permission to rebuild this temple and finish those walls?" Now, the interruption that I had while processing that information was a spirit we call Jehudi or Thoth. He is married to Mayet. They are Egyptian gods and goddesses, but they are more consistently related to being a spiritual family. Jehudi is a spirit, or Thoth. He is a spirit very much in precision of language, textmatics, anything to do with like language, text, scribes, how you write things down. He's an abyss. He's a single feathered bird. When I first met him and was received by him, he looked like a midnight cat. He was very like black, and I thought he was like a kitten that came in basically through like a telescope or something. And at the time, we were dealing with Roe versus Wade being overturned, and it made a lot of sense just to understand why you might see something that's like, you know what, hey, like, how are you feeling about this? Are you interested in getting involved? And because of the fact that he loves to see somebody's circle go back and forth, never make a complete transition. Whereas his wife, Mayet, she holds the balances within her hands when somebody passes over. And she will look at that person as they spin backwards and forwards as though, say these are my hands that Mayet holds, and Jehudi is the center of me. He likes to be able to twist somebody backwards and forwards because it provides a provocative, promiscuous essence for him. Black Lilith loves to chime in on these events. I was dealing with her at the time as well. This was like a year or two past. But absolutely, they love to get involved and they love to let themselves be known around. However, what the conclusion of Christ is meaning here is that absolutely that was a beautiful a beautiful introduction from Jesus Christ, my God, our Lord and Savior, letting us know that basically that there were prophets here in Jerusalem. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the irony of this already. Like, I don't read this thing ahead of time. I'm reading from the Old Testament all the way through. I'm in Ezra right now, and it was just like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go right back into my recording. I'm going to read, and I'm just going to do exactly what I do all the time. They keep trying to get attention. Put those down, not a moment longer. Okay. And then after that, it mentioned how it was encouraging them to begin building again. They did, and the prophets helped them. Now, where I put them down was a place that I can move them to, because we live on top of the temple. Now, where they try to make you see the Eye of Ra, and understanding that, you know, that there's this big pyramid, and then there's this whole like thing like Raya and the dragon that's upstairs looking at you like some type of reptile or reptile or something like that, relating it to children and Rugrats. Like, this is something anybody's community can join in on, is the complete false truth. And that's why we understand it with our money, but yet we need it for our leisure and luxury, which is considered where ISIS is connected. They love to relate to their families and things like that because of the Euphrates River and being east of the Nile. Now, however, what we're focusing on right now is God's Word. So let's put them down and understand where we are and ask what God wants us to know. They also asked, I love God so much. They also asked for a list of the names of all the men who are working on the temple. I just did that. Okay, let me stop. But because the Lord was overseeing the entire situation, our enemies did not force us to stop building, but let us continue while King Darius looked into the matter and returned his decision. Following is the letter which Governor Tattenai, Shethar-bozenai, and the other officials sent to King Darius. To King Darius, greetings. We wish to inform you, this is more Ramesses, watch this. We wish to inform you that we went to the construction site of the temple of the great God of Judah. It is being built with huge stones, and timber is being laid in the city walls. The work is going forward with great energy and success. We ask the leaders You ever feel like you can sneak it on somebody? Look how they try to place the jaw. I don't deal with Sobek anymore, though. The work is going forward with great energy and success. We asked. I just realized that the sound I did, they're trying to catch energy because I even mentioned their name and like referencing the wide mouth. Because most times when Sobek appears, I seen him once before and I was inside of his mouth. It was wild. They always say be scared of this. This means that you have a death curse over you. But apparently it was placed over my entire family. And I found out through studying the Celtic gods like Dagda and the Morrigan and people like that, like Brigitte and things like that. Like, you look very close to my spouse's husband. And I was just like, well, Brigitte is supposed to be who gave birth or who helped Mother Mary give birth to Jesus Christ. I figured that she was also considered a symbol as well as the puddle of blood that would rest below a mother giving birth. And then I started connecting certain things to everything that's in life, you know, like the Amityville Horror Story, or not Amityville Horror. Ooh, I love this greediness y'all have this morning. American Horror Story, where it's, what is her name? Vivian has like this child and stuff like that, and they have spirits that are above trying to catch her and like take her as a cake and like in a fortune and like tear her apart from her womb. And then you also have the Catch 'em and Kill 'em from like Amityville Horror and things like that try to chime in. Of course you do. Putting you down. Lilith is nobody to play with. She's literally like a smoking gun. Like, she'll let you watch like a gun the whole way and you'll be like, I wonder what she's going to go do with that. I wonder what she's going to go do with that, because we have harmless pity inside of ourselves. But at the same time, the smoke is being released from you. Basically not basically not seeking out basically not seeking out your word structures through God and how you speak or perceive yourself in prayer, outside of prayer through God. What you release out of you is no longer called air, it's called smoke. So what she's doing while she's contacting you is trying to get you to smoke. Most oftentimes you'll actually see yourself in reference of these things when you're looking into her. Like, she's black, but she has an all white face. And it's because the fact that your life lit up her face and the rest of you was left to be groin. Because the fact that she will always trade you in for her first lover, Samael, who I had to reject most recently. I thought was so beautiful, but oh my goodness, was absolutely disobeying the Lord. Absolutely sent me pictures trying to make me feel like I could be conceived in places of hell. But then when I started looking into it and reading into the Bible, I literally started getting God's explanation of everything. And then I started testing myself. Like, can I read this like with my eyes closed and predict what it's going to say next? And I would. And then I'd start reading it and then saying, you know, okay, before I do this, you know, like, let me like read in between the lines, or let me just highlight the line down the middle and see how it goes. And it always kept working out in such a perfect rhythm that I realized that God is who keeps the rhythm, the music, the melodies. And that the spirit guides are basically there like, oop, bop, boop, bop, ba-da, boop, boop. And it's where we get so caught up in music. It is. But at the same time, what created the music or the atmosphere for it was God. So it's not considered false idolatry or false worship. Many of us are into tarot and magic and witchcraft and things like that these days. So God also calls his prophets forward. He's called in Gad, Nathan. He's called in Miriam before. Miriam loves to stay upstairs with Archangel Michael because he has fallen as well to keep the ground clear on the earth. Now, where I'm going back to is because I love to stay distracted by God, not by the, y'all so jealous in that. That's ridiculous. All right, anyways. Right, sip the tea on your own time. We asked the leaders, who has given you permission to do this? And we demanded their names so that we could notify you. Their answer was, we are the servants of God of heaven and earth. Boom, as said. And we are rebuilding the temple that was constructed here many centuries ago by the great king of Israel. But afterwards, our ancestors angered the God of heaven, and he abandoned them and let King Nebuchadnezzar destroy this temple and exile the people to Babylonia. Now, this is something that's dealing with a druid. Also trying to reference in runes and people that are using runes. Please put those down. The B absolutely stands for the mother of a Wiccan habit who will keep you in perpetual atonement. So you will constantly be looking for the next source of inspiration, intuition. How can you get your best friend's money back? How can you support somebody who's on the ladder? And what can I do to keep you twisting so I feel satisfied? Now, this is completely in contradiction to the Lord, although he will support you, the vessel that can carry all of that. But what he's looking for is absolutely to you be able to say, no thank you. Like, I can do this on my own time. I'm in and out of this atmosphere if I would like to be. And right now what I'm doing is trying to share in between the areas of where prophecy is received, where a spirit is received, and then relieving us both of the situation, but carrying God. That is what we are here for to begin with. But they insist that King Cyrus of Babylon, during the first year of his reign, issued a decree that the temple should be rebuilt. And they say King Cyrus returned the gold and silver bowls which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and had placed in the temple of Babylon. They say these items were delivered into safekeeping of a man named Sheshbazzar, whom King Cyrus appointed as governor of Judah. The king instructed him to return the bowls to Jerusalem and to let the temple of God be built there as before. So Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the temple at Jerusalem. And the people have been working on it ever since, though it is not yet completed. We request that you search in the royal library of Babylon to discover whether King Cyrus ever made such a decree, and then let us know your pleasure in this matter. Now, letting us know, the message that I got where I felt slowed down was basically I felt Lilith interrupt me twice. And then I'm like, I'm going to keep reading as though I'm still reading. And then it was like, whoop, like you're going to have to say this, and we're going to see how this pleases and things like that. Like, we're not interested in this. Where I'm supposed to be going with this message is to let you know what's going on with you right now. This timeline does not occur. This timeline does not exist, or it does not have any reference. If you notice numbers and you love synchronicities, blessed on you. But absolutely what we're looking for is what God's message is. And that would be that the heroes have fallen. The heroes that we are looking for have fallen. We are only looking for the 7 evangelical angels. These are the angels that are kept within the earth's atmosphere at all times. They are considered the Cynthias, the prophets, and the absolute atmospheres of the, not Ezekiel, but the Samael that was dismissed. Samael was absolutely brought down during a certain plague that existed within the world and has been scattered throughout history. Now, with the release of Samael from history, we have to put it back together. And this is where we've already been told that there's going to be certain people that help us, witches. And then we have also been, such an aggressive group. And we've also been told that there's going to be people like astronomers who look towards the stars and try to keep it all upstairs. But then they look at for more of like a taurine and see how it's kind of like twisted. They're looking more for those eye sets that steal from you, make it be spark. You know what I mean? And then we absolutely have the people that walk the earth as prophets. I consider myself a prophet after and beforehand when I had passed away once already. And I broke my petrous bone, my third eye temple, and it connects to ancestral wisdom and civilizations. I was basically able to see the beginning of all time. I can see into your conception of your birth. I can see what happened while you were in the womb. I can tell you who put you together. I can tell you the day that you would die, and I can also tell you that by the name that I face. I don't need to know much about you. Your name, your face, and things like that are all descriptions for me. Where this information is leading is just the understanding that God has returned. He is a physical body on this earth. Now, he may walk incognito, but I have looked for him suspiciously for about 3 years now. I did lead up to first life where Jesus Christ is permitted to the understandings of human knowledge that he passed at the age of 32. And up until the age of 30, I was letting myself be a teenager and dabble around. And my first name is Cynthia, which also comes from the name of Tiamat, Sia, and Hecate, Artemis, things like that. My mother's name is Diane, referring to Diana, and who is, those mothers of Demeter. So, and then my last name is Pastor, which means basically it's shepherd. It's understanding of the shepherd. But I don't like to disintegrate that name at all because it's who I consider myself married to and working for. Now, I saw my nose shake. Like, you don't work for her, sis. You just embody her. It's letting you understand the fact that a marriage of God has been counseled in for us now. Understanding that is basically saying that chapter 5 in Ezra is what's telling us is that we are here to build and begin again. Now, where Samael has been wiped out through the last plague that has passed over with coronavirus and things like that, many of us were not taken into a safe shelter and offered a way to really support ourselves. But we were put on a pedestal with understanding Mayet and the understandings of the spirituality. We had a whole lot of sarcophaguses and coffins pass over top of us. And at the same time, we were put on an equal playing field where the richest person alive and the poorest person alive were supposed to be inside at the same time, and were not allowed to conflict over their money or their resources. This was what was beautiful. However, the contradiction was what the government and other officers of spiritual unions love to put into their timelines into your own timeline. Just certain deities are just like very forceful. What we're looking for is the safekeeping of man. So when God directed me to look at the safekeeping of man named Shesh Bazar, it means that the food that you cook, the mouth that you feed from, the mouth that you eat from is where you will receive from. So what I started doing was when COVID happened, I started looking at it as though it was freedom breaking out. I finally got my call. I finally heard the angel of God again. And I love to reference this on purpose because I spent a lot of time in like my own considerations of false idolatry, where I was researching so many different angels' names and having all of their storylines given to me and provided to me. Blessed Archangel Michael, blessed Archangel Gabriel, fell in love with Raphael, fell in love with Raguel, and I had absolutely they love to be inspiring. But the only angel of God is actually his son, Jesus Christ. So the only angel that we actually have that has survived on earth is Jesus Christ. Now, what I was told in a beautiful reference to me yesterday was the fact that Jesus Christ is the only one that reincarnates. So basically, what we do on this life is considered a proposal to God. What you do in this life is considered a proposal. And many of us have been told so many of a spiritual story, as well as aligning to spiritual benefits and habits and people as well, that what we should do, trying to turn me again, it's just like, is that, that was a good one too. Okay. No disrespect to God. What we're doing is understanding, whoa, they really did turn me for a second. I lost my whole space. Oh my goodness. Oh, that basically what you do in this life matters. Your first life incarnated. Every life that you live is your first life incarnated. There is no memory to trace or track. Like, there's nothing to travel through. But if you start looking into reincarnation and things like that, because you are the sole manifester of God in this reality, you can create such benefits. Like, there's been multiple celebrities that you feel like don't age, or that they look like, multiples of themselves throughout history. A lot of this is done through supernaturals and people like manifesting their own habits onto your technology nowadays. Like, just like that when you were on social media, that certain ads and things like that started popping up exclusively for you, blah blah blah. Nobody really knew what it was for, but it would just keep popping up. That was an ex of mine trying to stop by. Such an immature, boyish man. But what we're looking for is the fact that Jesus Christ is the man, is the angel, is the soul and spirit of God. And he is the one that actually comes down each and every single life. And he lives to his 32nd year and then reincarnates himself with the memory and who he met and who meets him every single time. They always talk about it being an apostle, saying that you will approach somebody in your lifetime. It could be the devil, it could be Satan, it could be Saul, it could be Timothy even sometimes. And they approach you basically with a benefit of transition, like, hey, how are you feeling about such and such happen? And things will still in silence around you. And I did have this, and I definitely did think that he was a bad guy. I did. But finding out that it was Jesus Christ, he's actually the one that reincarnates and then will follow you around in your situation. He will introduce himself to see where you are and how you actually feel in your benefit to the Lord. You will have somebody at least once in your life question you, how do you perceive God? How do you receive God? How do you want to deliver yourself to God? Would you look at a chapter a day? Would you look at a verse a day? One word? Could you scroll all day long for 3 hours and not look at one sentence from me? This is where you find your contradictions in the population. This is why you feel sick within yourself and don't know how to receive back. It's because of the fact that it takes no longer than reading a sentence or two a day, and then you've also conquered yesterday's day and today's day that I've already preceded you in. 2 sentences a day, 2 words a day, 2 letters a day. However you would love to perceive God is how God will perceive you. But your effort in it matters a lot. And this is what this is basically saying here. Like, what we are doing is basically we have been crashed and crumbled through the Chronicles, through the Kings, through the Samuels and everything like that. But now we are back onto the privilege of passing from Jehoshaphat. Now we're back on the privilege of passing out from under Samael, where so much has gone above us that was exhausted. So many souls have been lost above us. And we were actually supposed to, after coronavirus passed over, be in a state of Shiva for about 7 years. But honestly, it is a coined item to me to mention that it doesn't seem a bit selfish that the Jewish population, I don't much follow the construction of religion, but I would say I go to a Christian church. And wouldn't it be ridiculous to understand that a Christian woman wouldn't be allowed to marry Jesus Christ because he's a Jew? You know, if I was to go and find a Jewish man who's of great intellect, great virtue, and morale today, I would not be allowed, don't comfort me, I would not be allowed to marry him because of the fact that they understand themselves so much better. But they are also the perceivers of most time in themselves, and they keep trying to make something that looks like the apocalypse, like beast on my chest right now. Whatever his name was, the second one. And basically, they are honestly, if you've ever watched or known about some of the movies like The Exorcisms or The Possession, that's honestly the Jews putting it in, basically saying that you're not good enough for our God, that you aren't well under suspicion. See how they try to like slander their own kind. It's like you are supposed to be in support of this. And this is where I started to fall away from religion. I did look into the Orisha family and things like that as well. I went through all like different types of religions and things, just looking into them, seeing like what I could find, seeing what's actually there, and then looking actually what's within the church and what I could provide. And and it's something where it just seems a little bit suspicious to me, as well as acknowledged by God, that, you know, to consider Jesus Christ a Jew is false. That's the false prophet. He's not Jewish. He's the soul, the only soul that can reincarnate every 32 years. Every 20, 30 years, for some in some cases, he does incarnate, and he will show himself within the 23rd year with a message for you. And then by the time that you turn 32, where is his passing, you have to show that you are looking for some status ability to put that balance back down. I waited until I was turning almost 30, and I spent the next 3 years making sure that I removed myself from understanding, like, you know, telekinesis, telepathy, and being able to move people around. And I started looking into tarot cards and predicting the future. I was able to predict relationships, babies, marriages, deaths even. It started scaring me. And then I started seeing how mothers started following into my lap. And I was just like, why am I carrying you if I'm meant to be the one in God's chair? And they were more or less looking at me for accusation and assertion, trying to understand, like, how would you perceive yourself as sitting in God's chair? And it's like, well, each and every one of us is seated at the throne of God. However, what we're looking to be able to do is feel like we have that space there. I will not give my seat to you. You do not deserve such a thing. The soul was placed inside of me. You're only a spirit in this reality. Nobody needs these assertions or lacks of rhyme and rhythm. But what we are looking for is the understanding that you do not deserve to be seated in a place where you don't understand yourself as anything less than the assertion of Christ. Now, what this is saying as well is whom King Cyrus appointed as the governor of Judah. So when Scorpio meets the Ophiuchus curve, as well as being taken out from Pluto and Mars, this was a contradiction that the world gave to us. It's not an actual fact or falsity. It's considered the fact that we understood for thousands of years in civilization that this was a planet, not a moon, and less to be destructed for, more to be sought from. Now that we don't seek anymore, now we're positioned in Mars, now we're basically like feeling like there's this huge bottle glass that passes in front of us, sometimes connected to the goddess Arianrhod. She is considered the Disney's princess, whereas we've also prophesied things that they give us telecommunications to about Walt Disney being unfrozen. And if you actually look at a lot of the pictures and the titles, like how Inside Out matches Elemental, and if you turn them upside down, they actually equal each other out. But most people only look at the glass half full because they don't want to feel like they could miss anything. And that's because of these contradictions of spirit. So I know that I'm throwing a lot down at you. I love to get excited over this. And we've only read one chapter, but you have discussed the Lord so far. You have discussed God, and you have discussed Jesus Christ, as well as spirits that may be resting or resigning themselves from your prophecy. Because what you are allowed to do in this life is absolutely be a prophet yourself. That is what we're all inclined to do. It's all about seeking and destroying that mission. Don't play Battleship. Understand who you are. You know, God never left us from the age of 32 and decided that he was going to pass on and be up on the cross. Instead, we put him in an undercarriage garment, so, like sorted to a sumo wrestler, and then we pledge him basically on the cross like this. Whereas most of us know our death as a hanging. Now, there's other secondary hangings that can happen as well to this cross that is completely left off. But it's almost as though the story of God and how his crucifixion is, the wood that lays behind Christ is actually considered the wood, the threshold, the sheth robe as well, the dresser that contains everything that you've done in your life, and the carpet that lays between you. So everything that you've tried to create and everything that's happened from your arms that you extend. And then Jesus Christ hanging on the cross is basically his understanding that you could not be here with the Spirit. You have to be here with me. I will hold myself to this tie forever. And most people, what they do is they see themselves as incognito, and they'll just see the cross. They'll wear the cross on themselves, and that's how you can tell and distinguish us apart. Oh my goodness. Ooh, I hated when I studied the Mormon language. My goodness. I never seen a bigger vampire. Oh my goodness. I never seen a bigger exorcism Emily Rose experience going into that church. My goodness. I absolutely love them, and the people there are amazing. Amazing. But I really dislike the fact that there's bishops and, things like that going on. But, ooh, you guys threw me for such a hard curve. Whoop. Okay, let me try to pull that back. Though it is not yet completed, we request that you search in the Royal Library. So of Babylon is basically understanding that where Christ sees himself is basically we will not be set up on this pedestal. We will not be set up on a grand jury or a weight anymore. What we're doing is recognizing who the prophets are, who wants to follow God, and letting them preach. Those will be the people that prosper. And then understanding that every 32 years you're considered within a finished life. I have finished my life. So now that I'm 33, I'm beginning my first life again. I'm not into a second life. I'm not allowed a second life because I completed what I was meant to do within the first 32 years. Now, this is something that can occur for you at the end of every 2 years. At the end of every divorce, you're meant to stay and rest with God for 2 years. Doesn't matter if you were married for 20, 30 years. Doesn't matter how long you were married, 15 years, whatever. You stay and rest with God for 2 years. 1, so he can destroy what he built with that person. And 2, so he can rebuild the person that he desires you to be. This is something that we do not allow ourselves, even within plagues and circumstances like that. You're considered a new flux and weight, new probation time, new, gravity of what you can and cannot receive all the time. These measures are not meant to be with other people. They're meant to rest with you. And the way that we do that is by putting the money back into our own pockets and understanding that Jesus Christ was not a Jew. Jesus Christ was not following under religion. Jesus Christ is following you within your age. Where you decide to follow him, where you decide to look for him, is the best way that you will receive. Now, considering that I'm still in my first life, I still meet and match with certain complications because of the fact that I wasn't in reference to my history. I wasn't reading the Bible up until the age of 31. And even the ones I was referenced to were more like the stories, the stories that were more in reference to there's this one where the woman, her husband leaves her outside to be taken and raped by many, many men. And she gets raped through the night, and then she's caught dead on the ground with her hands trying to dig into the surface. She tried to drag herself back into the house. And basically her husband opens up the door in the morning, realizes that she's dead, and was trying to grovel her way back in the house. Where I was born was basically on the ceiling doing that. And then when I hit a certain age where I was following him, I fell down. So now I have perceptions of both ways, where I can feel some people reference it as a strength card or temperance. I would prefer not the star card. Even the Hierophant is actually rebellious of God. It's saying that you need to reference a prophet again before you see me. It's more in reference to Edo. So it's more like looking for the Garden of Eden without looking for God's true face, which is something that we're able to perceive through everyone. And what I can tell you about that is the fact that you don't need to be complicated over your religion. You don't need to be complicated over your money. You don't need to be complicated over what you've received today. Listen to 2 minutes. Listen to the whole 28 to 30 that I'll be here for. Understand that you were just read, that you were understanding that you received prophecy, and that what you did was absolutely a rebellious and encouraged act of God. Now, that is where I love to be, and that's why I signed up for this Space with God, to be a prophet and to admit myself as a prophet. I love that the last name pastor helps me stifle my way in there, but I don't think that I'll ever be at the front hand end of a church. I feel like it's a lot better to get out of the Joel Osteens and Benny Hinn's and things like that and actually sit in a seat with God myself and understand that you were taking the seats of other people, as well as you showed an encouragement through certain spaces. But where we can be as a whole population set down was that, did you see him sit? Did you see him sit? I had my son finger move down. He sat right back down. It's almost the feeling that you can walk along the earth as a God, but you will never consider yourself God, because the fact that he will keep you so content, you will understand and wish yourself an angel. And that's how we love to perceive ourselves, is that I am a human, I am an angel, I'm going home after this life. I need to get home. Nobody's trying to go to no space that feels bad or heavenly, like burning surfaces. The only place that you can experience hell is in your own life. So stop experiencing hell and start experiencing the water. And this is where all the emotional ties as well as our financial relief lays. So this is where I would love to leave you at 30 minutes and 11 seconds. But God bless you and bless and praise your beautiful day. I'm going to read some more of Ezra, and I will see you tomorrow.